All right, get ready to dive into some pretty shocking stuff from a recent congressional hearing.
Oh, yeah.
It's about government waste.
Hmm.
Like, we're talking trillions of dollars.
Wow.
Yeah, trillions. And it's our tax dollars that are potentially just, I don't know,
Just
vanishing.
going down the drain.
Exactly. So we're going to bring it all down for you, figure out what's at stake, and maybe even explore some solutions.
Sounds like a plan.
Now, this hearing comes from a subcommittee with a name you might not expect.
It's called the DOGE Subcommittee.
Like the meme?
Yeah, exactly. And they're the ones tasked with going after all this improper payments and fraud in the U.S. government.
Okay, so this isn't just a joke then,
No, not at all.
but DOGE. Seriously.
I know, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of funny, but also this is super serious stuff.
So no more DOGE memes, huh?
Nope, this is the real deal.
So before we get into the details, can you give us a sense of how big this waste actually is? Like, what are we talking about here?
Well, get this. The feds have a fraud rate of about 20%.
20%. That's
Yeah.
insane.
It is pretty wild, right? Especially when you compare it to the private sector, which sits around 3%.
20 versus 3? Wow. That's a huge difference. Why is the government so far behind on this?
Well, one of the big things they talked about in this hearing was how outdated laws are actually getting in the way.
Oh, interesting.
Like the 1974 Privacy Act, which is supposed to protect our privacy, right? But it actually makes it really hard to use modern tech to fight fraud.
So, like, they're using old tools for new problems.
Exactly. Think of it like, trying to fix a spaceship with a hammer and nails.
Okay, that's a good analogy.
Just not going to cut it. And that means slower processing, more manual work, and more chances for things to slip through the cracks.
So it's like they're setting themselves up for failure.
In a way, yeah.
And on that note, there was a lot of talk in the hearing about the tension between, like, the old ways of doing things and the need for some serious change.
Definitely.
What were some of the key takeaways there?
Well, this one witness, Dawn Royal, really stood out.
Oh, what did she say?
She's a welfare fraud investigator, and she did not hold back.
No.
She was pretty concerned that these career bureaucrats are actually downplaying the problem to protect their own interests.
That's a pretty serious accusation.
Yeah, and she didn't mince words talking about watered-down facts and, hidden political agendas.
Watered down facts, political agendas. Is there any truth to that, or is she just, stirring the pot?
Well, it's complicated. It's important to understand that big organizations, even government ones, can get stuck in their ways.
Oh, totally, I get that.
So change, even if it's badly needed, can be tough.
Yeah, people don't like change.
Exactly. And especially if they think it's going to threaten how things have always been done.
Right. It's like a turf war.
Kinda, yeah.
Okay, so we've got outdated systems, people resisting change. Sounds pretty bleak.
Yeah, a little bit.
But did they talk about any solutions? Like, are there any actual ideas out there for how to deal with this?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Oh.
This other guy, Haywood Telcove, he's the CEO of LexisNexis Risk Solutions for Government.
Hmm.
He came in with a 3-step plan that could really make a difference.
3 steps. All right, lay it on us.
Okay, so first up, he's all about strong identity verification up front.
Okay, that makes sense.
Like using tech to check people's identities at the very beginning before anything even gets processed.
So, like, before someone can even apply for a program, they got to prove who they are.
Exactly. It's about stopping fraudsters before they even get a foot in the door.
Smart. Okay, what's step 2?
He wants to get rid of self-certification.
Self-certification.
Yeah, it basically means trusting people to honestly report whether they're eligible for a program.
Oh, like the honor system.
Pretty much.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, he's not a fan either.
I mean, we're talking about billions of dollars here.
Exactly. He thinks it's way too risky and wants to use data and tech to actually verify eligibility.
So, no more taking people's word for it?
Nope, not when it comes to this much money.
Makes sense. Okay, so what's the third step?
Continuous auditing.
Ooh, that sounds intense.
It's about being proactive, not reactive.
So not just checking once, but keeping an eye on things constantly.
Exactly. You got to make sure things stay accurate and catch any fishy stuff right away.
Okay, I can see how that would be helpful.
Yeah, it's all about plugging those leaks.
Is this something that's already being done in the private sector?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Banks, credit card companies, they all use these kinds of techniques to keep fraud down.
So the government's behind the times again.
Kind of, yeah.
There was actually this funny moment in the hearing where one of the representatives, Representative Burchett, I think, was saying how even his doctor's office has better verification than some federal programs.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah. It's kind of embarrassing, honestly.
Yeah, you'd think the government would be leading the way on this, not trailing behind.
Totally. Okay, so we've got some potential solutions on the table, but who's actually responsible for all this waste?
Yeah.
Like, is this a failure of leadership?
Well, there's plenty of blame to go around.
I bet.
The Republicans in this hearing were quick to point fingers at the Biden-Harris administration.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're saying that expanding government programs without enough oversight just made the problem worse.
So they're blaming the Democrats.
Basically, yeah.
Right.
They specifically called out Biden's student loan forgiveness plan as a prime example of this reckless spending.
Ah, right. The one that got blocked by the Supreme Court.
Yep, that's the one.
But is there any evidence to back that up, or is it just political talk?
Well, figuring out who to blame in these situations is never easy.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's complicated, right? And it's easy to point fingers, but the reality is usually a lot more nuanced than that. It's tough to untangle,
I hear you.
Plus, everyone's got their own agenda, so separating facts from spin can be a real challenge.
Yeah, that's politics for you.
Pretty much.
Okay, so maybe we should just set the blame game aside for now and focus on those solutions.
Good idea.
Besides the three-step plan we talked about, were there any other ideas for tackling this waste?
Yeah, they kept bringing up the problem of duplicate participation in these welfare programs.
Oh, right. Like when someone's getting benefits in multiple states.
Exactly. Some people call it double dipping.
Yeah, I remember Dawn Royal, the fraud investigator. She had some thoughts on that.
Yeah, she was really pushing for something called the National Accuracy Clearinghouse.
What's that?
It's basically a big database that states can use to see if someone's already getting benefits somewhere else.
Oh, so they can check if someone's trying to pull a fast one.
Exactly. It's all about closing those loopholes.
Seems pretty straightforward.
In theory, yeah, but there are some hurdles.
Like what?
Well, you gotta balance preventing fraud with protecting people's privacy.
Right, of course.
Remember those outdated laws we talked about? They can make it hard to share information, even if it's for a good cause.
Yeah, you don't want to create a system that's too Big Brother-ish. Right?
Exactly. It's a tricky balance. But hey, on a more positive note, it seems like tech is going to play a big role in fixing this mess.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, Haywood Telco from LexisNexis, he was really excited about the potential of AI and data analytics.
Ah, right. The tech guy.
He's convinced that the government needs to get on board with these tools if they want to catch up to the private sector.
So basically, using computers to fight fraud.
Basically, yeah. He thinks AI can totally revolutionize how we do things.
Okay, but how would that actually work? Like, can you give me an example?
Sure. Imagine a system that can analyze millions of transactions instantly, like in real time.
Whoa.
And it's looking for any patterns that scream fraud,
Right.
like weird spending habits or attempts at identity theft.
That's pretty cool.
The cool thing about AI is that it can process huge amounts of data way faster than any human.
Yeah, humans are kind of slow.
We are. So AI could be a real game changer in this fight.
I'm starting to see the potential here, but, AI can be a little scary too, right?
Right.
It's like, what about biased algorithms or AI being used to target certain groups unfairly?
Those are totally valid concerns, and we need to be super careful.
Yeah.
Anytime you use AI, it has to be ethical and transparent.
Right.
We need strong oversight to make sure it's fair and unbiased.
Makes sense.
It's not just about using the tech, it's about using it responsibly.
I like that. Using it responsibly.
That's the key.
Now, one thing that's really struck me throughout this deep dive is how the private sector seems to be way ahead of the curve on all this stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of a pattern, isn't it?
Why do you think the government is lagging behind?
Honestly, it's a tough question.
Yeah.
Some people say it's a cultural thing, like government bureaucracy just isn't built for innovation. Others say it's about funding or politics or just the sheer size of the government, It's a big machine to turn around.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's probably a mix of all those things, honestly.
Right.
But whatever the reason, the consequences are real.
Oh, for sure.
We're talking about trillions of dollars wasted.
Trillions.
Money that could be used for so many better things like education, healthcare, infrastructure.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling.
And it's not just about the money itself, it's about trust.
Trust.
Yeah, when people see their tax dollars being wasted, it chips away at their faith in the government.
Right. It creates this sense of, like, why should I even bother?
Exactly. It breeds cynicism and apathy.
It's frustrating,
It is.
Like, you'd think with all the resources the government has, they'd be better at protecting our money.
You'd think so, right?
It feels like a failure of leadership on some level.
I can see that.
So as we wrap up this part of the conversation, what are the big takeaways here?
I think the most important thing is that this issue affects everyone.
Yeah.
It's not just a problem for politicians. It's a problem for all of us as taxpayers.
We're all in this together.
Exactly. We need to hold our elected officials accountable and demand real solutions.
And that brings us back to the DOGE Subcommittee.
Oh, right.
This group, named after a meme, is supposed to fix this massive problem.
It's kind of wild, isn't it?
Do you think they can actually make a difference?
Well, it's definitely an interesting paradox.
Yeah.
On one hand, the name itself could bring a lot of attention to the issue.
People are going to notice that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And maybe even bring in more resources.
Right. But a catchy name isn't enough. We need real action,
Yeah. We need more than just hype.
We need bipartisan support, solutions that actually work, and a real commitment to fixing this.
It can't just be another political football.
Exactly. And honestly, that's been the biggest problem in the past.
What, the politics of it all?
Yeah, it always gets bogged down in partisan fighting.
People just digging in their heels.
Exactly. So it remains to be seen if this DOGE subcommittee can actually break through that.
Fingers crossed.
I know, right? But, thinking about all this, there's this underlying theme that keeps coming up.
Ooh, what's that?
It's trust, or rather the lack of it.
That's interesting.
Think about it like Dawn Royal, the fraud investigator. She doesn't trust those career bureaucrats one bit.
Right. She thinks they're more worried about protecting themselves than our money.
Exactly. And then you have the Republicans who don't trust the Biden administration.
They think the Democrats are making things worse.
Right. So you've got distrust on both sides.
It's like everyone's suspicious of everyone else.
It really is. And even those solutions we talked about, the identity verification, the AI audits, it's all about reducing the need for trust.
So instead of trusting people, we're going to trust technology.
In a way, yeah, it's like we're fighting a war on waste with a war on trust.
That's a good way to put it.
But it does make you wonder, how can the government function if nobody trusts anyone?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It's a real dilemma, because when trust erodes, it's almost impossible to get anything done.
Even if it's a good idea.
Exactly. It's this vicious cycle. Waste leads to distrust. Distrust makes it harder to fix the waste, and so on.
It's like a recipe for disaster.
Pretty much.
So how do we break out of this cycle? How do we start trusting the government again?
Well, I think it starts with conversations like this one.
Just talking about it.
Yeah, being open and honest about the problem.
Acknowledging that it exists.
Exactly. And being willing to listen to different perspectives, even if we don't agree with them.
So no more shouting matches.
Hopefully not. We got to find some common ground, right?
We're all on the same team here, at least when it comes to our tax dollars.
Exactly. It's not about Democrats versus Republicans. It's about making sure our money is being used responsibly.
It's about the government serving the people, not the other way around.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So what can our listeners do? How can they make a difference?
Well, first off, stay informed.
Don't just tune it out.
Right. These hearings might seem boring, but they're full of important info.
They tell us what's actually going on.
Exactly. And remember, this is your money we're talking about.
Trillions of dollars.
Trillions. That could be going towards education, healthcare, you name it.
Things that actually matter.
So pay attention to what your elected officials are doing.
Are they trying to fix this?
Right. Are they holding people accountable? Are they working together?
Those are the questions we should all be asking.
And don't be afraid to speak up. Contact your representatives. Tell them what you think.
Let them know we're watching.
Exactly. The more people who speak up, the more pressure they'll feel to actually do something.
That's like, what's that saying? Sunlight is the best disinfectant.
That's a good one. The more we shine a light on this problem, the better.
So transparency is key.
Definitely. Okay, before we wrap up, I want to go back to that DOGE subcommittee for a second.
Oh, yeah, the meme squad.
It's kind of brilliant, right? Naming it after a meme.
It's definitely catchy.
It's memorable. It cuts through all the noise.
People are paying attention.
Exactly. Maybe it'll be the thing that finally gets people talking about this issue.
Maybe DOGE will be our savior.
Who knows? Stranger things have happened.
That's true. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought.
Okay, shoot.
If you were in charge of the DOGE subcommittee, what would you do?
Ooh, that's a good one.
What would be your top priority? Tough question.
Yeah, but it's something to think about.
It is. And as you keep learning about all this, stay curious. Keep asking questions.
Don't just take things at face value.
Exactly. Do your own research, form your own opinions.
And most importantly, hold those elected officials accountable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let them know that you're paying attention and you expect them to take care of your money.
It's our money, after all.
That's right. Well, thanks for having me on. This has been a really great discussion.
Thanks for joining us. It's been eye-opening, for sure.
It always is.
And for our listeners, if you want to learn more, we'll have links to all the resources in the show notes.
Definitely check those out.
All right, that's it for this deep dive.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Stay informed, stay engaged, and keep fighting for a better government.